The rain was cold, but her ex-husband's words were colder. Celine Cartwright was used to being invisible. After a bitter divorce left her with nothing, she was just a ghost, haunting the edges of a life she once knew. Her ex, Mark, now a successful exec, loved to remind her of it. "Still alone, Celine?" he'd sneer. "No one wants damaged goods." He laughed in her face, secure in his new life, until the night of the Metropolitan Gala. That was the night a hand took hers, a hand belonging to the city's most elusive billionaire. And in front of everyone, he didn't just acknowledge her. He called her his bride. The coffee shop's bell tinkled, a cheerful sound that felt like a personal insult to Celine Cartwright. It meant another customer, another fake smile, another few minutes stuck in the steamy, espresso-scented purgatory of her post-divorce life. She'd once curated art for the Viridian Gallery. Now she curated latte art, and poorly. Her shift was over. 8 hours of foam and steam had left her smelling faintly of burnt milk. She pulled her thin coat tighter. The November wind off the pavement was brutal, slicing through her jeans. She kept her head down, a familiar posture of defeat. Well, well, well. If it isn't Celine. The voice hit her like a physical slap. It was smooth, confident, and dripping with the kind of casual cruelty she knew better than her own heartbeat. She looked up. Mark Denton, her ex-husband. He wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. His suit was a custom-tailored masterpiece of dark charcoal wool. His shoes reflected the grey sky like polished obsidian. And his watch, the one she'd argued against as too extravagant back when they were married, flashed under the streetlight. And he wasn't alone. Hanging on his arm was a woman who looked like she'd been assembled in a lab for the specific purpose of making other women feel inadequate. She was all sharp angles, glossy hair, and effortless boredom. This must be Tinsley Lattimore, the shipping heiress Mark had been just networking with during the final 6 months of their marriage. "Mark," Celine said. Her voice was a dry rasp. She willed the pavement to open and swallow her. "Tinsley, darling," Mark said, not taking his eyes off Celine. "This is my ex-wife." Yes, the ex-wife. The one who thought art history was a viable career path. Tinsley gave Celine a look that was less a look and more a species evaluation. It was a glance that took in Celena's worn boots, her frizzy, rain-dampened hair, and the faint coffee stain on her coat cuff. Tinsley's perfectly sculpted nose wrinkled. "Oh, Celine is working at that little coffee place now, isn't that right?" Mark smiled, a wide, predatory flash of white. "Keeping busy. Good for you. It's important to have hobbies." Each word was a pinprick, designed to deflate. Celine just stood there, her canvas tote bag feeling suddenly heavy with its single, sad contents. A library book and a half-eaten granola bar. "I have to go, Mark." "So soon?" He stepped directly into her path, forcing her to stop. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial sneer. "You know, Soph, I almost feel bad for you. Almost. Look at you. You let yourself go completely. I did you a favor, really. Cut you loose. Please move, Mark. Is that what you're wearing to the big, lonely night at home event? That coat? God, that's depressing." He laughed, and Tinsley let out a high-pitched titter beside him. "Still alone, Celine? I have to say I'm not surprised. I mean, who would want this?" He gestured vaguely at her entire being. "No one wants damaged goods. You're yesterday's news." Damaged goods. The phrase echoed in the hollow space in her chest. This was his routine. He found her, he poked, he prodded, and he walked away feeling taller. He needed to see her failure to feel his own success. "I'm happy for you, Mark," she lied, the words tasting like ash. "You got everything you wanted." "That I did," he said, his smile tightening. He ran a possessive hand down Tinsley's fur-trimmed sleeve. "Tinsley's family is hosting their table at the Foundation Benefit Gala next week. We'll be seated with the mayor. And you'll be here. Steaming milk." He finally stepped aside. "Have a good night, Celine," he called out as they walked away. "Try not to freeze, or, do. Whichever." Selene didn't move until their laughter had faded down the block. She didn't cry. Crying felt like a luxury, an expenditure of energy she couldn't afford. Instead, a cold, hard knot of something she hadn't felt in years began to form in her stomach. It wasn't just sadness, it was rage. She walked home, the 10 blocks to her tiny 5th-floor walk-up. The apartment was cold. She couldn't afford to turn the heat up past 60. She ate canned soup, standing over the sink, and stared at the eviction notice on her fridge. It was her 3rd one. The freelance art consulting gigs had dried up, and the coffee shop salary barely covered utilities. Mark was right. She was alone. She was failing. She was damaged goods. She looked at the elegant, embossed invitation stuck to her mirror. It had arrived 3 days ago, a cruel joke from the universe. It was for the Foundation Benefit Gala. Her old boss at the Viridian Gallery, perhaps out of pity, still had her on the B-list for industry invites, which meant a $500 standing room only ticket she couldn't possibly afford. She'd been planning to throw it away. Now, staring at her reflection, the pale face, the tired eyes, the faint coffee stain that wouldn't come out, she picked it up. Mark would be there, laughing, winning. Celine looked at the eviction notice, then back at the invitation. The rage in her stomach burned hotter. "No," she whispered to the empty, cold room. "Not this time." She didn't have a plan. She didn't have money, a dress, or a date. But for the first time since she'd signed the divorce papers, she had a motive. She would not let him have the last laugh. She would not be damaged goods. She just needed a miracle. Or, failing that, an opportunity. The opportunity, as it turned out, smelled like truffles and desperation. Selene's miracle hadn't arrived. The gala was in 2 days, and she was no closer to attending than she was to flying. She had, in a moment of sheer, blind panic, called her old boss from the gallery, a woman named Patricia. "Selene, how lovely," Patricia had said, her voice strained. "Patricia, I know this is a huge ask. The Foundation Gala. You don't happen to have an extra seat at your table, do you?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "Oh, Celine. Darling, the tables are $25,000. I'm a guest myself this year. I'm so sorry." "Right, of course. Stupid of me," Selene murmured, shame heating her face. "But," Patricia said, perking up, "I did just get a frantic call. My friend Anne is running the catering for the event. Anne's Elegant Edibles. She just had 2 servers call out with the flu. It's a black tie attire gig for the servers, but it pays $500 for the night. Cash." Selene's heart sank, then, pragmatically, rose again. It wasn't the triumphant entrance she'd pictured. It was the service entrance, but it was in. And $500 was half her rent. It was more than a motive. It was a necessity. "I'll do it," Selene said. 2 days later, Selene stood in a cramped, humid kitchen in the sub-basement of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The gala had taken over the entire Egyptian wing. Upstairs, a string quartet was playing. Downstairs, Celine was in a starchy, ill-fitting black uniform, trying to balance a tray of champagne flutes that was heavier than her entire body. "Cartwright," barked the catering manager, a stressed man with a clipboard. "You're on appetizers. Wing C. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak unless spoken to. You are wallpaper. Got it?" "Got it," Selena said, hoisting the tray. She moved through the glittering, roaring crowd like a ghost. The room was a sea of jewels, silk and surgical precision. Women with impossibly smooth faces laughed with men who ran the world. Celine's worn-out server shoes, the only black flats she owned, pinched her feet. She saw him. Mark. He was holding court by a sarcophagus, Tinsley at his side, radiant in red silk. He was laughing that booming laugh, the one he used when he was closing a deal or telling a joke at someone else's expense. Selena ducked behind a marble pillar, her heart hammering. Wallpaper. Just be wallpaper. She spent an hour offering tuna tartar on a wonton crisp to faces she recognized from Forbes magazine. It was exhausting, humiliating work. Her arm ached from the tray. Finally, she was sent to clear plates from a quieter, roped-off alcove. It was a small atrium, away from the main crush, where a few guests had retreated for quiet conversation. She was gathering dessert plates when she backed into someone, hard. A plate clattered, and a half-eaten lemon tart wobbled precariously. "Oh my God," Selena gasped, whirling around. "I am so sorry. She was talking to a chest, a very broad chest, in a tuxedo that was so perfectly cut it must have been sewn onto him. She looked up. The man wasn't angry. He wasn't anything. He was just watching her. He had dark, intense eyes that seemed to be cataloguing everything, the cheap uniform, the stray wisp of hair escaping her bun, the tremor in her hand. He was older, perhaps in his late 40s, with touches of grey at his temples. He was, Selene realized with a jolt, devastatingly handsome, but not in the flashy way Mark was. This was a quiet, powerful stillness. "My apologies," the man said. His voice was a low, smooth baritone. "I was in your path." "No, I'm the one," Selene stammered, rescuing the lemon tart. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get you a new, whatever you were having." He looked at the plate in her hand. "I believe I was finished with that." "Thank you." He didn't smile. He just kept watching her, a faint crease between his brows. "Right. Of type. I'll just clear this." She felt like a complete idiot. She wasn't just wallpaper, she was clumsy wallpaper. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "You don't belong here." Selene froze. Was he getting her fired? "Sir, I promise, I'm just—" "Not as a server," he clarified, still in that quiet, assessing tone. "You're wearing the uniform, but your posture is wrong. You're angry." Selena's head snapped up. I'm not." "Yes, you are," he said, not unkindly. "You're angry, you're humiliated, and you're watching someone." He subtly tilted his head toward the main hall, in the general direction of where Mark was holding court. "Who is he?" Selene was so stunned she answered honestly. "My ex-husband." "Ah." A flicker of something. Understanding? Amusement? Crossed his features. "The one with the laugh. You heard it?" "Everyone in 3 Wings heard it. He's trying too hard. The girl he's with. Her father's money is old. His is new. He's desperate for approval." Selena stared at him. He had just dissected Mark and Tinsley's entire relationship in 2 sentences. "And you're here? Why?" he asked. "To serve him mini quiches? That seems like a poorly planned revenge." "I needed the money," Selena said, the admission burning her throat. And I think I just wanted to prove I could be in the same room, even if I'm invisible." "You are," he said, categorically. "Not invisible." He looked at her, truly looked at her. for the first time all night. He wasn't looking at her uniform. He was looking at her eyes. It was more intimate than any touch. A woman in a glittering green dress appeared at the entrance to the atrium. "Gregory, there you are. They're about to start the auction. We need you." The man, Gregory, didn't take his eyes off Celine. "I'll be there in a moment, Cynthia." The woman scurried away. "Gregory," Celine whispered, the name clicking. Gregory Preston. She hadn't recognized him. He was famously private. Gregory Preston, the reclusive billionaire head of Preston Enterprises, a man who bought and sold companies like baseball cards, a man whose net worth was whispered to be in the dragon category, so rich, unicorn didn't cover it. He finally smiled, just a small, private quirk of his lips. "You have a stain," he said. "What?" He reached out, not to touch her, but to gesture. "On your collar. Coffee, I think." It was the stain from this morning, the one that wouldn't come out. Selena's face burned. "Of course." "You're Selina Cartwright," he said. It wasn't a question. "How do you— I've read your work, your analysis of the pre-Raphaelite influence on modern surrealism. It was competent." Coming from him, competent sounded like genius. You read my thesis?" "I was considering buying the Viridian Gallery last year. I did my due diligence on their curatorial staff. You were the only one with an original thought. Patricia was a fool to let you go." Celine's mind was reeling. Gregory Preston. Knew her name. Had read her thesis. "I have to go," he said, the mask of polite indifference settling back over his features. "They're auctioning off a very ugly statue that I'm expected to overpay for." He paused, his hand in his pocket. He pulled out a simple, heavy stock business card. "You shouldn't be here, Celine Cartwright. Not like this." He pressed the card into her hand. "My assistant, Robert, will be expecting your call. We have a position open, head of acquisitions for my private collection. The interview is Monday, 9 a.m. Don't be late," he said. And with that, the most powerful man in the room was gone, blending back into the crowd, leaving Celine Cartwright standing alone in the atrium, holding a name card that felt heavier than the champagne tray. She looked at the card. Gregory Preston, CEO, Preston Enterprises, and in the corner a handwritten R.J. and a phone number. She looked out at the main hall. Mark was still laughing, oblivious. He had called her damaged goods. Selina tucked the card into the pocket of her uniform, the sharp edge of it pressing against her ribs. She picked up her tray of dirty plates, but her back was straighter. Her shoes didn't seem to pinch as much. She wasn't wallpaper. She was an anomaly. And she had an interview. Preston Enterprises was not a building. It was a statement. A sheer 90-story tower of black glass and steel that seemed to absorb the sunlight rather than reflect it. Celine's reflection looked back at her from the lobby's polished marble floor, a woman in her only decent suit, a grey wool blend she'd bought for her last gallery interview 2 years ago. It felt like a costume. She checked her watch. 8:58. a.m. Celine Cartwright, she announced to the receptionist, who looked more like a model from a sci-fi movie in a sleek, silver-grey dress. "Mr. Preston is expecting you. 94th floor. Mr. Johnson will escort you." Mr. Johnson, R.J., was the man from the card. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and completely unreadable. He didn't say a word, just led her to a private elevator. The ride was silent, and so fast her ears popped. The 94th floor was not an office. It was a vault. The walls were a soft museum grey, the lighting was subtle and the air was still. There was no desk, just a seating area, and a single, massive, empty wall. And art, everywhere. Sculptures, paintings and artifacts that made Selene's hands itch with the need to know them. Gregory Preston was standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring down at the city. He looked, Selene thought, like a general surveying a battlefield. "Miss Cartwright, you're punctual. I detest lateness." He turned. "Robert, thank you. That will be all." RJ nodded and vanished as silently as he had appeared. Mr. Preston," Selene started, her rehearsed speech dying on her lips. "That," he said, ignoring her, "is a 1953 de Kooning. Woman V. He was famously brutal with his paintings. He'd paint, scrape, and repaint. He believed in the glimpse, the moment of clarity after the chaos. Tell me about it." Selene stared at the painting. It was a chaotic slash of pinks and yellows. "It's visceral," she said, her voice finding its footing. "Most people focus on the aggression, the misogyny. But I think they miss the point. He wasn't painting a woman. He was painting the act of painting, the frustration, the desire, the failure of the paint to ever capture the idea. It's not a portrait. It's a confession." Gregory was silent for a long moment. He just watched her. "Competent," he said again. "And that?" He gestured to a smaller canvas in a simple frame. It was a quiet, moody landscape of the Scottish Highlands. "A mid-period work by Anne Finlay," Selene said instantly. "It's barely known. She was overshadowed by her male contemporaries. But her use of impasto to capture the wetness of the air, no one did it better. It's not just a landscape, it's a temperature. You can smell the rain." "You're correct," he said. "It's also a fake." Selene blinked. "What?" "It's a forgery. A very, very good one. I bought it last week, along with the real one, which is in my vault. I wanted to see if my team could tell the difference. They could not. They ran spectral analysis, pigment dating, all perfect. But you," he stepped closer, "you didn't analyze the paint. You analyzed the intent. You saw the one thing the forger couldn't replicate." "The temperature," Selene whispered. "The soul," Gregory corrected. "The spectral analysis said it was real. Your gut said it was trying too hard. Most of the art world is built on lies, Miss Cartwright. On what people tell you is valuable. On men like your ex-husband, who derive their worth from what others think." He walked to the large, empty wall. "This is where my newest acquisition was supposed to hang, a triptych by Francis Bacon. My team fumbled the auction. They were outmaneuvered by a 20-year-old hedge fund manager who wanted a conversation piece for his penthouse." He turned to face her. "Your interview is over, Miss Cartwright. You are now the head of acquisitions for my private collection. Your salary is triple what the Viridian paid you. You will have an unlimited acquisitions budget, a corporate apartment on the Upper West Side, and a clothing allowance. I expect you to use it." Selene was speechless. I don't... Why?" "Because you are the only person I've met in a decade who can tell the difference between a confession and a lie. And because I detest being outmaneuvered." He stepped toward her, and for a second she felt like a rabbit in a trap. "This isn't a job, Miss Cartwright. It's armor. Your life, as you knew it, is over. From now on you are not Selene, the barista. You are not Selene, the ex-wife. You are Miss Cartwright, my agent. You are a fortress, my fortress. You will be polite, you will be ruthless, and you will never, ever let them see you stain your clothes." "Who is they?" Selene asked, her voice trembling. "Everyone," he said. He handed her a black, impossibly heavy credit card. "Robert will show you to your new apartment. Your old life is packed. My people were very efficient." You packed my apartment?" "The eviction notice was unsightly. We settled your lease. You start tomorrow. "Your first assignment," he said, a dangerous glint in his eye, "is to find me a better bacon. And I want you to personally outbid the hedge fund manager to get it." Celine walked out of Preston Enterprises 2 hours later. She was in a daze. Robert had shown her the apartment. It was a 3-bedroom pre-war, furnished with a sparse, elegant taste that was both beautiful and cold. Her few shabby belongings were in a box in the walk-in closet. She stood on the street, the black Amex feeling hot in her hand. She was, for all intents and purposes, a new person. A familiar black town car pulled up to the curb, and Celine instinctively stepped back. Mark Denton got out, straightening his tie. He was, she realized, coming into the Preston building. He must have a meeting. He saw her. His face, for a split second, was a mask of pure confusion. "Celine?" he said, as if she were a ghost. What are you doing here? Are you cleaning this building now? I thought you were better than that." The old Selene would have shrunk. The old Selene would have hidden the coffee stain and apologized for existing. The new Selene simply looked at him. She let her gaze travel from his shiny shoes to his overconfident smirk. She didn't say a word. She just raised her hand, not in a wave, but as a signal. A yellow taxi, as if summoned by magic, screeched to a halt. Selene got in. She looked back at Mark, who was still standing on the sidewalk, his mouth slightly open. "Have a good day, Mark," she said, and her voice was as smooth and cold as the marble in the lobby she had just left. The cab pulled into traffic, leaving him standing in her wake. It was the first small victory, and it tasted sweeter than any coffee she had ever served. 6 months passed. 6 months of 80-hour weeks, of flying to Paris for a breakfast meeting and being in Hong Kong by dinner. Selene learned to sleep on planes and to negotiate in 4 languages. She learned that a clothing allowance wasn't a suggestion. It was a uniform. She now owned more shoes that cost 4 figures than she had, 6 months ago, dollars in her bank account. Her hair was cut in a sharp, elegant bob. Her wardrobe was a collection of silks and cashmeres in shades of black, grey, and navy. She was, as Gregory had demanded, a fortress. But he had underestimated her. She wasn't just a fortress. She was a weapon. She hadn't just found him a better bacon. She'd found the lost bacon, a piece rumoured to have been destroyed in a fire. She tracked it to the private vault of a disgraced Japanese billionaire, and, in a silent, 48-hour bidding war, she hadn't just outbid the hedge fund manager. She'd bankrupted his new art fund. Gregory had almost smiled. Their relationship was intense, forensic, and utterly devoid of romance. It was a meeting of 2 very sharp minds. They argued, not about feelings, but about value. "Don't tell me what's popular, Celine," he'd barked at her during a video call. "I can hire a teenager with an Instagram account for that. Tell me what matters. Tell me what will still matter in 100 years." She'd fired back. "And I'm telling you that this unknown sculptor from Berlin matters. His work isn't popular, it's true. And if you can't see that, you're not a collector, you're just a very rich hoarder." The line had gone silent. She'd thought she was fired. "Buy his entire collection," Gregory said, and hung up. She hadn't seen Mark. She hadn't had time. Her old life felt like a bad dream, a story that had happened to someone else, until the night of the Sotheby's winter auction. She was there to acquire a small, perfect Vermeer. Gregory was, for the first time, attending with her. He hated auctions, but this was a major play. Selene was on the floor, sleek in a dark, emerald-green dress, her presence commanding a quiet respect. The auctioneer knew her. The gallery owners feared her. She was Miss Cartwright. and then she saw him. Mark. He was standing with Tinsley Lattimore near the Impressionists. Tinsley was radiant. But Mark looked frayed. He was laughing too loudly, drinking champagne too fast. He saw her. The laughter died in his throat. He didn't see the coffee-stained barista. He saw a woman in a $10,000 dress, with skin that glowed from expensive facials and an aura of untouchable power. He saw Gregory Preston, the dragon himself, lean in and whisper something in her ear. And he saw Selene laugh and shake her head as if they were equals. Tinsley whispered, "My God, is that Celine?" Mark's jealousy was a physical, choking thing. It was white-hot and immediate. This wasn't possible. The universe had made a mistake. He waited until Gregory had stepped away to take a call. Then he pounced. He cornered her by the bar. "Well, Celine," he slurred, his voice thick with a mix of champagne and spite. "Quite the upgrade. Let me guess. You're his personal shopper, or is it a more personal arrangement?" The sting of the insult was familiar, but this time it didn't land. Selena looked at him, not with anger, but with a kind of detached pity. He was so small. "Hello, Mark." "Tinsley," she said, her voice a low, smooth contralto. "Lovely to see you." "Don't hello Mark me," he snapped. "What is this? Who are you with? How did you get in here?" "I'm here for the Vermeer," Selene said, sipping her sparkling water. "Lot 42, and you're standing in my light." "Don't you dare," he hissed, grabbing her arm. "Don't you dare look down on me. I know who you are. You're nothing. You're just a girl from the suburbs who got lucky." Selene didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. She just stared at the hand on her arm until Mark's fingers, as if scorched, recoiled. "You're wrong, Mark," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "I know exactly who I am. I'm the person who just bought the painting you were bragging about in the lobby, the one Tinsley's father wanted for his birthday. I bought it this afternoon. From his dealer. Before it even went to auction." Mark's face went white. "Now, if you'll excuse me," Selene said, giving him a small, sharp smile she had learned from Preston. "I have a bid to make." She turned and walked away, her back straight, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Mark was left fuming, his hands clenched. Tinsley watched Selene go, her eyes wide. She looked at Mark's furious, mottled face. For the first time, she wasn't looking at a catch. She was looking at a liability. "Mark," Tinsley said, her voice suddenly as cold as the ice in her glass, "you're making a scene, and you've spilled champagne on your jacket." Selene won the Vermeer. The paddle raise didn't even last 3 minutes. When the auctioneer said, "Sold to Miss Cartwright," a quiet ripple of acknowledgement went through the room. She was a kingmaker, or at least a king's hand. Gregory was waiting for her in his office, even though it was past midnight. A storm was lashing against the windows of the 94th floor. "He touched you," Gregory said. It wasn't a question. "I'm fine, Gregory. It was nothing." "It was not nothing. It was an assault. I'll have him removed." "Don't," Selene said. "He's not worth the energy. He's pathetic. He's self-destructing." "Besides," she said, allowing herself a small, grim smile, "I think I handled it." "You did," Gregory said, turning from the window. He was in a dark mood. "You embarrassed him, which unfortunately has made my own life more difficult." "What do you mean?" Gregory paced the office. "Denton has been, for the last 3 months, whispering in the ear of his new prospective father-in-law, Thomas Lattimore. He's convinced the old man that I am a corporate raider, a threat to his precious family legacy." "Tinsley's father," Selene said, the pieces clicking into place. Lattimore Shipping. The very same. Gregory stopped and picked up a heavy crystal decanter. Lattimore is a small man who inherited a big company. He thinks he's a shark, but he's just a remora. He's blocking my acquisition of the West Side Freight Terminal, a crucial piece of my new logistics corridor. He's using his political connections to block the zoning permit. It's a bad faith, idiotic move that will cost the city thousands of jobs. But he's doing it. Why? Because your ex-husband told him to. Because Mark Denton, in his pathetic, jealous rage, has convinced Thomas Lattimore that this is a personal war, that I'm trying to destroy him, that I stole you. Selina felt a cold chill. This is because of me. It's because he's a parasite, Gregory corrected, his voice sharp. But he has given me an idea. He set the decanter down with a heavy thud. The storm outside raged. Lattimore is an old-world fool, Gregory said, his eyes aflame with a sudden, cold calculation. He respects only two things, money and family. He thinks I'm a machine. He can't get a read on my personal life, so he can't find a weakness. He can't predict my moves. He thinks this freight terminal is just business. And it's not? It's everything, Gregory said. But he needs to believe it's personal. Right now, he thinks I am obsessed with Mark. Your stunt at the auction tonight, it confirmed his worst fears. He thinks I'm using you to get at Denton. But you're not, Celine said, though a sliver of doubt entered her mind. My motives are irrelevant, Gregory said. Lattimore's perception is all that matters, and we're going to give him a new perception. We are going to give him a weakness he can understand. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Thomas Lattimore and his wife are hosting the annual preservation ball in 2 weeks. It is the undisputed event of the season. Your ex-husband and his fiancée will be front and center at the main table. Lattimore will be giving a speech. And you want me to go? Selena asked. To outbid him for a centerpiece? No, Gregory said. I never attend these things. They are a grotesque waste of time. But this year, we are attending, and we are not just attending. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Lattimore needs to see that I'm not a corporate raider. I'm a dynasty builder. He needs to see a side of me he can't predict. He needs to see that I'm settled, that I'm not a threat, I'm an ally. He needs a weakness to exploit. I don't understand, Selene said. What weakness? Gregory looked her straight in the eye, his gaze so intense it was almost a physical blow. I need to rattle them, Celine. I need to break Mark Denton's brain. I need to walk into that ballroom and stop the music. And how do we do that? We don't, Gregory said. I do, with my partner. Gregory, what are you? I need, Gregory Preston said, his voice dropping to a whisper. A fiancé. Celine recoiled as if he had struck her. A fiancé? Yes, that's insane, she said, her voice shaking. That is not in my job description. This isn't a job, Celine. You said it yourself. You're not my employee. You're my agent. This is an operation. Think of it. Think of the logic. He began to pace again, the predator back in his element. Mark Denton. He sees you as his discarded property. He can't stand that you're successful, but he can compute it. She's his employee. She's his mistress. Blah, blah, blah. He can file that away. But this, you and I, together, as a union, it's the one thing he cannot compute. It shatters his entire worldview. It proves he was never even in the game. And Lattimore? Selena asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lattimore sees it, and he's relieved, Gregory said. Ah, Preston isn't a wolf. He's a man. He's in love. He's building a home. He's not a threat. He's a potential in-law. Old world fools love a wedding. It's the only business they understand. He'll stop seeing me as a rival and start seeing me as a peer. The zoning block will evaporate. So you want to lie, Selene said flatly. I want to win, he countered. I'm not asking for a real marriage. I'm asking for a performance, a 6-month engagement. We'll be the talk of the town. We'll be nauseatingly happy in public. We'll see this Lattimore deal through, and then we'll have a quiet, amicable split. They realized they were better as colleagues. The press will eat it up. And what do I get out of this? Selene asked, crossing her arms. Besides the humiliation of being your prop? Humiliation? Gregory scoffed. You'll be the most powerful woman in New York, but I know you don't care about that. He stopped in front of her. The contract. It's yours. What contract? The one for the old Viridian Gallery space. The lease is up. I'll buy the building. I'll buy the entire building, and I will give you the gallery. Not as a loan. As a gift. The Cartwright collection. Fully endowed. No partners. No board. No oversight. Yours. 6 months of a lie for a lifetime of truth. Your truth, your work, your name above the door. It was everything she had ever wanted. A gallery. Her own. The name, Cartwright. Not as an ex-wife, but as a curator. But it was a deal with the devil. It was using the same tactics of manipulation and lies that Mark had used. She looked at Gregory, at this powerful, brilliant, and deeply lonely man. He saw the world as a chessboard, and she was his favorite new piece. I'll do it, she said. Gregory's face flickered with, was it relief? Good, Robert will have the contracts drawn up. No, Selene interrupted. No contracts. Gregory froze. What? You want to trust me as your fiancé? Then trust me. I won't do this for the gallery. I'll earn the gallery with the salary you already pay me. I will buy that building from you one day. Then why? I'll do it on one condition, Selene said, stepping into his personal space. We do this my way, not as your quiet, smiling, ornamental fiancé, but as your partner, as your equal. If I am going to be your weakness, then I am going to be the most dangerous, unpredictable, and expensive weakness you have ever had. I will have opinions. I will argue with you in public. I will make you work for this, and you will tell me the truth about everything. No more games, no more pieces on a board. Partners, or the deal is off. Gregory was silent for a full minute. He stared at her, and for the first time, his mask of command was gone. He looked surprised. He had expected her to negotiate on price. She was negotiating on principle. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face, the first one she had ever seen. Partners, he agreed. He held out his hand. Selena didn't take it. Don't be ridiculous, Gregory. If I'm your fiancé, you'd better learn to kiss me. And before he could react, she put her hand on the back of his neck, pulled him down, and kissed him hard. It was not a romantic kiss. It was a kiss of sealing, of branding. It tasted like $1 billion deal. She pulled back. Now, she said, her voice husky, go buy me a ring, and make it visible. The engagement was not announced. It was detonated. The next day, Selena was seen having lunch with Gregory at La Grenouille. This in itself was a page 6 item. But it was the ring that stopped traffic. It was not a diamond. It was a flawless, 30-carat, pigeon's blood ruby, surrounded by black diamonds. It was a statement. It was a get out of my way. The headline ran the next morning, a blurry photo of her hand against his. Preston's ruby? Billionaire's mystery woman rocks a rock. Mark Denton saw the paper. He laughed. He threw it across the room. "It's a fake!" he yelled at Tinsley. "It has to be. He'd never—" "Not with her. She's damaged goods. She's playing him." Tinsley, however, was silent. She was looking at the picture, at the way Gregory Preston's hand was resting possessively on Celine's. She was looking at a woman who had, in 6 months, gone from a coffee stain to a ruby, and Tinsley was, for the first time, deeply, truly afraid. The night of the preservation ball was cold and clear. The entire facade of the Metropolitan Museum of Art was lit in gold. Inside, the great hall was a sea of crystal, diamonds, and old money. Mark Denton was at the head table, next to Tinsley and her father, Thomas Lattimore. Mark was on his 3rd glass of champagne, and the orchestra hadn't even finished tuning. He was a wreck. The rumours of Preston's engagement had been a torment. He'd spent the last week calling everyone he knew, trying to get confirmation, only to be met with polite, pitying silence. "He's not coming," Mark said to Lattimore, with a false, booming confidence. "Preston never comes to these things. He's a ghost. That whole engagement story, a plant, a PR stunt. He's trying to spook us. He's... Nothing." Thomas Lattimore just grunted and checked his watch. He looked worried. This zoning block. It had seemed like a good idea, a way to show that Lattimore Shipping still had teeth. But now he felt exposed. The orchestra finished tuning. The chatter in the hall died down as the night's host, the mayor, stepped to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor began, "welcome. We are so thrilled to see so many generous—" And then the great doors to the hall opened. The music didn't stop, but the chatter did. Utterly. Gregory Preston entered the ballroom. He never attended these things. He was a myth. And on his arm was Celine Cartwright. She was not in black. She was not in grey. She was in a gown of midnight blue velvet that seemed to drink the light. The ruby on her hand was a splash of blood against the dark fabric. She wasn't beautiful. She was incandescent. She was not a fortress. She was a queen. She looked powerful. She looked terrifying. And she looked, most of all, like she belonged. They didn't walk. They processed. Every eye in the room, every banker, every politician, every socialite was on them. At the head table, Mark Denton's champagne flute slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. Tinsley went pale. Thomas Lattimore looked like he'd just seen the 2 most powerful people in the city, and he had. Gregory and Celine didn't go to a table. They stood, a receiving line forming around them. The mayor, mid-speech, actually stopped talking, gave a nervous laugh and said, And a very special welcome to Mr. Gregory Preston and Ms. Celine Cartwright. So good to have you." The applause was thunderous. Mark couldn't take it. He was drunk, and he was furious. This was his night. His. He waited until Gregory was pinned in a conversation with a senator. He saw Selene, momentarily alone, looking at a painting. He pounced. "What is this?" he hissed, grabbing her arm, the same arm as at the auction. Selene turned. Her face was cold. "Let go, Mark. What kind of game is this?" Mark sneered, his voice loud enough to turn heads. People were watching. Did you sleep with him for this? For a dress? For a ring? I knew you were desperate, Selene. But this is pathetic." "You're embarrassing yourself," Selene said, her voice low. "I'm embarrassing myself," he laughed, a wild, high-pitched sound. "You're the one on display. He's mocking you. He'll get tired of you in a week. He'll throw you out, just like I did." He mocked his ex for being alone. Isn't that the story? But he doesn't know what you are, Celine. You're a user. A a coffee-stained little. A hand, large and powerful, landed on Mark's shoulder. The grip was so tight, Mark winced, and his hand fell from Selena's arm. Gregory Preston stood behind him. His eyes were not angry. They were dead. They were the eyes of a shark that had just smelled blood. "That's enough, Denton," Gregory said, his voice a low, pleasant baritone that somehow cut through the entire hall. The room was silent. Mark, emboldened by champagne, wheeled on him. "Stay out of this, Preston. This is between me and my—" "You're nothing," Gregory said. "You are drunk, you are loud, and you are finished." "And you," Mark jabbed a finger at the billionaire. "You think you've won? You think taking my leftovers makes you a man? You're with her. She's nothing. She's a washed-up, lonely barista. She's damaged goods." The silence in the room was absolute. Selena didn't move. She just watched Mark sign his own death certificate. Gregory Preston smiled. It was a cold, devastating, beautiful smile. He looked at the crowd, then at Mark. He gently took Selena's hand. "He mocked his ex for being alone," Gregory said, his voice clear and carrying, silencing the entire room. He was repeating Mark's words, turning them into a proclamation. He looked at Selena, his gaze softening, a look of such profound something that it made her heart stop. Until a billionaire took her hand. He lifted Selena's hand, the one with the impossible ruby ring. He turned it over and kissed her knuckles, and called her his bride. The last word hit the room like a thunderclap. "Bride?" Selena's head snapped to him. "Bride? That wasn't the plan. The plan was fiancé. The plan was 6 months." Mark's face collapsed. It went from red to white to a mottled, sickly grey. The humiliation was total. It was a public execution. Tinsley Lattimore burst into tears. Her father, Thomas, stood up, knocking his chair over, and walked straight out of the ballroom. His reputation, his company, it was all tied to this circus, this public, trashy display. Gregory leaned in, his lips brushing Selena's ear. "The zoning permit will be approved by 9 a.m. tomorrow." Then he whispered something only Mark could hear. "The Lattimore deal is dead, Denton. You overplayed your hand." "And Mark?" Gregory said, pulling Selene close to his side. "She was never damaged goods. You were just a very, very bad shopper." Gregory raised his glass to the stunned room. "A toast," he said, "to my bride." And he kissed Selene, right there, in front of everyone, as the flashbulbs of 100 cell phones went off, sealing their fate and ending Mark's. The fallout was immediate. The New York Post cover the next day was a full-page photo of the kiss, with the headline, "Preston's Bride." The subheader, "Billionaire's shock engagement humiliates ex." By 9 a.m., the zoning permit for the West Side Freight Terminal was approved. By 10 a.m., Thomas Lattimore had called Gregory, profusely apologetic, and offered to sell him the contested land. Gregory declined. By noon, Lattimore Shipping's stock was in free fall. Thomas Lattimore, in a panic, fired the man responsible for the reputational damage to his family, Mark Denton. Tinsley Lattimore had her assistant deliver the engagement ring to Mark's office in a small, insulting FedEx box. The note inside read, "You are a liability, and you're pathetic." Mark was left with nothing. No job, no fiancé, no prospects. He was blacklisted. No one would hire a man who had, so publicly, tried to take on Gregory Preston, and lost. The last anyone saw of him, he was in a rumpled suit, staring up at the Preston Tower, his face a mask of rage and regret. He was, in every sense of the word, alone. He was damaged goods. The ride home from the ball, in the silent, velvet-lined back of Gregory's Bentley, was thick with unspoken words. Celine was the first to speak. Her voice was steady. "Bride?" Gregory was looking out the window, the city lights flashing across his face. It was a necessary escalation. "A necessary escalation," Selene repeated. "You do realize the difference between fiancé and bride, don't you? One is a negotiation, the other is a merger." "The deal was contingent on Lattimore's perception," Gregory said, turning to face her. "He's an old-world fool. Fiancé is temporary. Bride is a dynasty. It was the correct move." "It was the correct move," she said, "for the deal. So the deal is done. The contract is complete." "Yes," Gregory said. "The Lattimore deal is done." "So the engagement is over," Celine stated. She began to pull the heavy ruby ring from her finger. "I suppose Robert will have the amicable split press release ready by morning." "The contract is void," Gregory said. Celine's heart, for some stupid, illogical reason, sank. She'd won. She'd won everything. The gallery, her freedom, her revenge. So why did it feel like a loss? "So," she said, her voice hollow, "I'm fired?" "No, Miss Cartwright." He put his hand over hers, stopping her from removing the ring. His skin was warm. "You're being promoted." Selena looked up, her eyes meeting his. The game face was gone. The CEO was gone. It was just Gregory. "Promoted to what?" she whispered. "Head of spontaneous public humiliations." A small smile touched his lips. "My partner. In everything." He took her other hand, the one without the ring. "The Lattimore deal was just paperwork, Celine. The gallery is yours. That was always true. But this," he gestured between them, "this is the real acquisition. This, us, was a business arrangement, Gregory. You said it yourself." "Was it?" he asked. "Was it just business when you defended that sculptor from Berlin? Was it just business at the auction? Was it just business when you kissed me in my office and told me to buy you a visible ring?" Selena's breath hitched. I don't want a 6-month performance, Celine. I don't want a prop. And I don't want a fortress." He looked at her, his gaze so raw and honest, it undid her completely. "I want a partner, a real one, the one who isn't afraid to tell me I'm wrong, the one who can see the soul in things." "Gregory," she whispered, This is insane. Is it? Or is it the only thing that has ever made sense? You walked into that gala as a server. You walked into my office as an applicant. But you walked into my life as an equal." Celine looked at the man in front of her. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a man. Complicated, brilliant, and as lonely as she had been. They were two sides of the same, rare coin. A slow smile spread across her face. A real one. "My interview," she said, her voice playful. "What?" "My interview. To be your bride. You said it in front of the mayor. I'm holding you to it." Gregory looked confused. "Celine, I'm proposing." "I know," she said. "And I'm telling you. My interview is Monday, 9 a.m., my office. And this time, I'm negotiating." Gregory Preston stared at her for a long moment, and then he did something she had never heard him do. He threw his head back and laughed. It was not a boom, like Mark's. It was a deep, warm, genuine sound of pure joy. "I look forward to your terms, Miss Cartwright," he said, pulling her close. "Mrs. Preston," she corrected him. "My terms are extensive." The car drove on into the night, carrying the two most powerful people in the city, and for the first time in her life, Celine Cartwright was not alone. She was not damaged. She was, finally, and completely acquired. And she thought, as he kissed her again, so was he. And just like that, the game was set. Selene had walked into that gala as a ghost, but she was walking out as a queen in training. The story of Mark's humiliation was just beginning, and the world had no idea the lengths Gregory Preston would go to settle a score. What happens when a woman with nothing to lose teams up with a man who has everything to gain? The fallout will be legendary. Wasn't that a wild ride? If you loved this story, you know what to do. That like button isn't going to smash itself, and my team tells me that if you hit subscribe, it sends a tiny shockwave of joy directly to the algorithm. Don't forget to share this with someone who loves a good comeback story, and drop a comment below. What do you think Mark's face looked like when he heard the word bride? I'll see you in the next video.